Sales Proformance Show.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. I'm Dave Sliman, your host, and this is the Sales Proformance Podcast show. And as you know, we dive into stories of business ownership, personal development, and today I am super excited for our guest today. Todd Oser is here, and it's a real interesting story. So they have a paint and flooring store that has been around since 1980. His father had started it, and he is the owner now, and he has transitioned into this ownership. And we are going to talk today about business ownership, leadership, and really that transition. There's some of you out there who may be transitioning just like Todd here, and where you have a parent or somebody who's started the business and you're transitioning into that ownership or that leadership position, or sometimes you might be acquiring a company and stepping into a leadership or an ownership position. So we're going to talk about that today, and I'm really excited about digging into this show. So Todd, I want to welcome you to the show, and thanks for being here.
Yeah, really appreciate the invite, and I'm looking forward to it.
Great, man. So let's just back up here, okay? So it's you have Oser Paint and Flooring. It's been around since 1980s. Give us a little bit of history about the company itself, and then we're going to talk about all the stuff today and what's ahead.
Yeah. So my dad opened the store up in 1980. He was a painting contractor here in Georgetown, and just couldn't. There was one paint store in town, and he would call in his paint order for the next day. The guy would ask him what time he wanted to pick it up at, and Dad would tell him, "Hey, what time can I be there?" The guy said, "Whatever time you want to be here, I'll be here." And so he'd get there at 7:30, 8 o'clock when he told him he'd be there, and the owner wouldn't show up until 8:30 or 9. And so Dad just kind of got fed up with it, and he's like, "I can do this on my own." So opened a small little paint store in downtown Georgetown, and just kind of went from there with it. Went wallpaper, started carrying wallpaper a little bit after the paint, and moved into flooring. About the mid 90s, really started to get more into the flooring part of it. And the wallpaper kind of moved away from the painting. Dad got out of the painting contracting business once I got into middle school. So he quit painting himself, and so we still had the paint as of in the early 2000s, about 2005, when I got back from college and started working in the business. We sat down and I said, "Look, you used to be a paint store that sold a little bit of flooring." And I said, "Now, but I need you to realize that you're a flooring store that sells a little bit of paint."
So I want to back up here because you grew up in this business, right? I mean, from being young, although obviously you're talking through college. So were there times where you were working in the business through the years? I'm sure there were, but I'd like to dig into that a little bit.
Yeah. So, growing up, my mom was a school teacher. And so we got out of school at 2:30. And we had to be at the store by 4:30 because that's when the help that was working in the store, that was when their time to leave was. So from 4:30 to 5:30 every weekday we were in here. My job was to pick up trash out in the parking lot. It was to organize bags. It was, whatever the small things were when I was younger, that's what I had to do. I kind of got the menial tasks that nobody else wanted to do.
Right.
And every Saturday from 9 to 5, I was in here. By the time I got 4th or 5th grade, I was allowed to start tinting paint and do that. So, really learned how to work with customers and, try to help them and help them out on that. But yeah, that's what I did. I grew up in the business. I knew once I got to middle school that this is what I wanted to do.
You did. Okay, great. I was going to ask you a question. Like, when did you know that you were in, like, this was my deal too?
Yeah. So, by the time I got to middle school, I knew this is what I liked. I liked business. I liked numbers. I like math. So it all kind of fit into that same, area of what I wanted to do. So, I didn't work a whole lot during the school year in here, but summers were spent in here. And then once I graduated, from college and came back, I graduated on a Friday night and started to work on Monday.
There you go. There you go. So now you graduate, you're working, obviously with your dad pretty close on this and your family pretty close on this. And then you see this opportunity to go from a paint store who has flooring and now to a flooring store that has paint. Talk to me about that transition. And when did you identify, what was the key that identified that for you?
Yeah. So while I was away at college, Georgetown started really booming. We have a Toyota plant here that makes the Camry. So we really grew exponentially in about the mid 80s, early 90s is when Georgetown really had a big growth. But while I was away at college in the early 2000s, Lowe's came in, Sherwin-Williams came in, and they went, especially Sherwin-Williams, went after the painting contractor business. So, they really went out there and really worked to earn that business. And that's not something that we don't have or didn't at the time have dedicated salespeople to go out and really like prospect and try to bring business in that way.
Yeah.
So in doing so, we really lost that portion of it, of the painting contractors.
Gotcha.
With Lowe's being here, everybody kind of thinks that a big box store is going to be cheaper than a mom and pop shop. So we kind of lost that, what we call John Q public type of business. So when I really got in here and started looking, we were doing a whole lot more flooring than what we were doing on selling paint. And so just that realization that, we're not doing the paint business that we used to, but we've still been provided another opportunity to service the community as being a flooring provider.
Gotcha. I want to back up on something here that you were just talking about, Todd, okay? Because a lot of the businesses that I've worked with through the years are SMBs, small, medium-sized businesses. And I really want to unpack something here that you touched on. Okay, you have these big box stores that come in and people think they can get things cheaper there and all that. How do you, talking a day-to-day, how do you compete with that? I really want to know on your side, how do you compete with those big box stores that come in? Because I'm telling you, this isn't a story just of yours. This is stories across the country where you have towns that are growing and these big box stores recognize it. And you've been there for years. And next thing you know, they slap up a huge building right there. Everybody thinks it's great and fantastic, but you've got to fight back for that business. How do you do that?
Yeah. So, what we really try to provide to people that we really market ourselves on is we're not the cheapest, but we feel like we provide the best value.
Okay.
So when it comes to customer service, when it comes to communication, during picking out the flooring, when it comes to us getting it ordered for you, us receiving the material, scheduling the install, letting you know that, hey, just a reminder, we're coming out next week. This is the day that we're coming out to install.
Yeah.
This is what time we're going to be there. And then following up afterwards. Hey, did everything go okay with the installation? Did you have any issues? Okay, you've got this one problem. Definitely. We'll get our installation tech on there and we'll get that knocked out for you. So for us, it's being able to communicate the customer service part of it. When you go to a big box store, when you go into the flooring department, you might talk to John that's in there. But yesterday, John was in lighting, and 2 days ago, he was in, the outdoor landscaping area. So he's not going to have that wealth of knowledge that we have when it comes to that. Another issue that, we use subcontractors for our installation, but we always tell people that we back their work 100%. So in other words, when our sub gets done, if there's an issue, you don't have to try to get a hold of Nate to come back and take care of that. We're going to get a hold of Nate for you. Get that scheduled and get that put back in there. You're not trying to chase him down, hoping that he's, one, still installing, B, or two, still that he's in town. we're going to take care of that and make sure that, we get that situation rectified for you. So that's where
Yeah,
we
it's
kind of
yeah.
set ourselves apart.
Yeah, it's really important, man. I think if there's anything you can, it's like I always say this: control what you can control. Right? You can control your marketing, you can control your staff, you can control your follow up, you can control your follow through, but you can't control everything else. If they plop a store next to you or down the street from you, they can't control that. But just control what you can control. And I think that's really what you're saying. And I think that's a fantastic point of somebody who might be up against that, which it is. It's happening across the country, everywhere.
Yeah. We always tell, when we talk to people, if you're selling on price, if that's the only thing that you can sell on, you're going to lose every day. Because the big box stores have a bigger buying power. They have, they can sell stuff cheaper. So if you're selling on that, and there's, for some people, they're great. They're, if somebody has a certain budget that they have to stay within and I can't help them, then that's a perfect place for them to go.
Yeah.
But if you can sell yourself as, we're part of the community. We've been here. My mom was, like I said, a school teacher. I went to school here. We sponsor youth teams. We do philanthropies and things like that. So we really try to give back to the community so that, and we don't do that just because we want recognition for it and we want your business. We do it because we feel like that's what we're supposed to do as part of the community. And so that's what's kind of really helped us, is just to, continue to give back to the community. We feel like we've been extremely blessed. And we try to bless others through that. And those, Lowe's isn't sponsoring too many sports teams for Johnny's Little League team or Sally's dance team. Yeah. So we're just trying to do that.
Yeah, keep your roots in the community for sure. Know your audience and keep your roots in the community. That's fantastic. All right, so now sorry, I got sidetracked there, but I want to come back to this. So now you transition into, more of a flooring and a flooring store versus a paint store, but you still, the paint's part of the operation. You're out of college, you're working in the business. Now what's happening?
Yeah, so the flooring just really took off for us. With Georgetown growing, we've had a lot of new builds. We don't do a lot of flooring for the new builds, but those are great people to get in contact with 2 to 3 years afterwards, when they want to upgrade from carpet to hardwood or vinyl planking. So those are people that we really try to market to. So that's where our, the majority of our business comes from residential remodel. That's our bread and butter. That's really what we go towards. So they really took off for us, doing those jobs, working with those people. Some new build custom homes that we're really doing work with. So, we continued to grow. And then, like the rest of the country, for us, 2011 hit. For the rest of the country, it was 2008, 2009. We're in Georgetown. It gets us a little bit later. But it was tough. At the time, my sister was working in the business with me. My parents were what I call partially retired. They were wintering in Florida. The rest of the time they were up here. And we had to sit down in 2011 and said, hey, we've got enough money in the bank to carry us about 6 weeks. And my sister looked at me and said, I'm out. Wow. This is what you dreamed about doing. This is what you want to do. At the time, she had 2 young kids. And, as a business owner, you don't have a work schedule. You don't get to see the kids a lot. And so she was like, this just isn't where I feel like God wants me to be right now. And I think this is what I'm supposed to do. So she left the business. We downsized. We got rid of the wallpaper completely, downsized our showroom, and really feel like 2011 is when things really took off for us. Once we committed to, hey, we're not in control of this. There's a higher power out there. And just a short little story. We're a very faith-based business. we believe that we are blessed when we're busy and we're blessed when we're not busy. And that, God has a plan for us. So we felt like in 2011, that was him kind of telling us, hey, I'm in control here. And I think you all have forgotten that. So once 2011 hit and we did what we needed to do, we've grown exponentially over the last 13 years, to the point of we're usually 15 to 20% growth over the previous year for the last 13 years.
Wow. So I want to cut in here again one more time though. You've got 2011, things just, they tank.
Mm-hmm.
You've got 6 weeks reserves in the bank. Mm-hmm. And you say to yourself, what were some of maybe the top 3 changes you made at that point when you pivoted? Obviously, you said the wallpaper, you got rid of a product that probably wasn't doing you any justice, right?
Right.
What maybe were one or 2 other things that you did that were really pivotal in transitioning through that and making it through? Obviously, in the faith too. I'm right with you, brother. In the faith, we all have God has a plan for all of us. But I'd like to maybe unpack 1 or 2 more of those things.
Yeah, I think for us, like I say, when my sister left, we got rid of the wallpaper. And then in doing so, we had probably about a 3,000 square foot showroom. We owned the shopping center that we were in. So that 3,000 square foot showroom, we busted down to about 1,100 square feet. So we really condensed on what we were carrying. When we did that, that cut down on utilities. So the utility bill went down, the water bill went down, everything went down on that. We really started tracking our expenditures. When money's flowing in, it's really easy to just send it right back out and not think anything about it. But when it goes from a full flow to a trickle, then you really got to start to pay attention to where every dollar's going and how it's getting spent and what you're working on. And that's really what we did. We really just buckled down. A lot of times in the wintertime, it was just me in the store. We didn't have any other payroll. My parents were gone. There would be times when I had appointments and I would put a note on the door that would say, I'll be back 15 to 20 minutes. And it's amazing that people would wait. I wasn't there. The door was locked and I would come back from an appointment and somebody would hop out of their car and be like, hey, I've been here 10 minutes, and I'm like, I apologize for that. No, we completely understand. It's not a problem at all. And so when you see that from your community in a time when you're kind of down in the dumps, and as someone in that time when we were a 30-year-old business, as the second generation, my biggest fear is don't mess this up. Don't be the one that puts it out of business. Don't be the one that bankrupts it. That's, people ask me all the time and I'm like, that's, from a business standpoint, that's my biggest fear. Don't be the one that messes it up. So it was just really tracking the money, and being very responsible with it, was probably our biggest thing that we did. Minus my sister leaving and the downsizing everything, really just tracking, where the dollars are going.
Yeah. It's funny. I'm working with a client right now is in the same position and they had a bunch of reserves. And when you have that reserve, a dollar amount of reserves, but things aren't going as well, you think that you just going to keep that same payroll, you're going to keep that same expenses. But if the tighten up would have happened maybe a year ago or a year and a half ago, there would have been a stronger runway. There's still a runway, but more importantly, everything is being looked at right now from down to the lunches and the spending. So it's one of those things where I could say, and listen, I've lived the same life. When things are really good, you're not as tight looking at things. But when things get really tight, then it's like, wow, I got to make some tough decisions.
Right.
And that's all part of it. It's all part of it. And sometimes I always look back and I say, man, if I would have made these tough decisions when things were going really well, I'd have been flowing in the cash. Right. But it's like, sometimes it's you don't look at it that way, but that's really one of the bigger challenges is when things get tight, how you react to it, and you got to make adjustments. So now you're moving through 11, you're rolling up. So at this point too, you said this, your parents really were kind of out of the business, or were they still involved at this point? Or because from 11, or was this your show at this point?
Yeah. So 2011, I was handling the majority of the day-to-day things. Mom and dad, like I say, would go down the middle of October to Florida through right before Christmas, come home for Christmas, and then go back down from January through about the end of March. So I was handling a lot of the day-to-day. But even still to this day, my dad's in here when they're in Georgetown. My dad's in here, and a lot of things. Again, I handle day to day. I don't. He just wants to be kind of informed of what's going on. So a lot of times, I've got a business coach now that I work with, and I'm like, hey, Dad and I had a knockdown drag out today about this, and he goes, okay, but you're telling him the what. He wants to know the why. So if you give him the what and you give him the why at the same time, a lot of times he'll stop questioning you on it. And he said, so you just really you gotta work on, that's your main thing, is you know that it's going to work. What you're dealing with your dad, who's 74 years old, you're changing things, and you just need to let him feel like he's a part of it. Even if it's just, he's not really there, just let him feel like he's a part of it, because it is. And my dad considers this business his third child. And so he just, he wants to be a part of things. He wants to be involved in it, or at least just know what's going on.
I think that's such a great point. And whether, you're working with your father, or whether you're working with if you're a leader in a company, or you're leading from the front lines and you have a manager, I think this is a great point that you bring up. And I want to make sure that we clip that going back to this. But not only what you're doing, but why you're doing. And I think a lot of times in business, listen, things move fast and people communicate about what they're going to do, but they never really explain the why and the reasoning behind it. And we always just want to move to what we're doing. And I think that's a great point for all of you out there who want to move up into a leadership position, working with somebody above you, or you're working with an owner, or you are the owner, and even communicating that to your staff or to the people that work with you. Not what you're doing. Okay, we're going to do this, but I want to tell you really why we're going to do this. And I think that's a big thing that's missed these days, because everybody wants to tell you what they're doing, but you got to really focus on unpacking why. And I think that was a great point.
Yeah. And I think too, like you said, even explaining to your team, explaining to your employees, when you give them the why and not just the what, it really makes them feel like they're a part of it, because now you're explaining why you're doing it, instead of just go do it this way, and this is why we're going to do it. If you say, hey, go do this, this is why we're going to do it, and take care of it, then they feel like they're a part, even though they didn't make the decision. At least they feel like you're taking the time to explain to them why you're doing it. And so you're not just giving them a directive or an order. You're explaining to them why that, and it really makes them, it's going to be easier for them to really buy into it.
Yeah. And if they have questions, it opens it up, right? I mean, it opens up a dialogue and questions and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's fantastic. Now, was there a point, I'm kind of bouncing around here, but was there a point that you had the conversation with your dad that was like, hey man, this is all right, I'm handing this thing over to you. You're in charge? Or did it gradually happen?
It's been a gradual. He'll tell you that since about roughly 2014 is really when I really stepped in and started really taking care of everything. about that time is when a lot of phone calls that were coming in, and they weren't asking for Larry anymore. They were asking for Todd.
Yeah.
And I think for him, that was a real eye opener on that, you know, I've kind of moved from the CEO role to just kind of I don't want to say an employee role, but I'm just somebody else that's here and working, and I still have knowledge, but I'm not the person that people are wanting to talk to when it comes to sales reps coming in and offering products, or people calling about marketing, or people asking for donations. You know, they're not asking for Larry anymore. They're asking for Todd. And I think for him, and I think for males in general, any man, it's tough. I had a conversation with another guy today that worked at Toyota. And he said, when I retired, he said the person told me that he went from being just a person or went from being a pip to a person. And I kind of looked at him, and he said a pip is a person, a very important person in position. And he said, when I left Toyota, I wasn't that anymore. I was just dad. I was just a husband. And he said, I was no longer that very important person that people came to for things.
Yeah, came to. Yeah, it's got to be that's a transition, man.
So it's rough, and we're still working on that. You know, we're 10 years into it. 4 years ago, I finally convinced him to build an off-site showroom. So we built a brand new showroom right during COVID. Got that in here. We got moved in the Thanksgiving weekend of COVID, of 2020. And, you know, it was a big step for us. Again, I'm taking a chance and going, hey, let's move. I know we've been in this place for 35 years, but let's go try something different. And so we moved in and got settled in. Things have been great. But again, this has been probably the last 4 years have probably really been the toughest as far as me not checking in with him on making decisions. We've changed marketing strategies. We've hired a new salesperson. We've hired a new marketing person. So these are things that I'm doing, and I always make sure to tell him why we're doing them, what we're doing, and then why we're doing them. Because again, it just makes him feel like he's in the know and in the loop, and he's not being caught off guard.
Yeah.
Again,
was there anything you guys? So I want to talk about this a little bit, okay? Because I'm sure it happened. Was there anything where you're like, man, this is a great idea, and he was like, no, this is not a great idea, and we are not going to do it? And like, have you been in that situation? And if you were, how the heck did you handle it?
Yeah, so we haven't really had that. I've got a business management degree. I've got a marketing minor. Dad has a physical education degree. And just, I've always admired him because he's always just, you know, he does what he needs to do to get things done. So anytime I'm like, where he wants to do it himself, I'm like, hey, let's outsource that. Let's get this for marketing. Let's let these people do payroll. Let's take care of these things. And there's been some pushback of, well, I don't think why do we need to pay somebody to do something that we can do ourselves? And I'm like, I understand, but if I don't have to spend 45 minutes running payroll and paying sales tax to the state and doing this, I can be working on leads. I can be doing something else that's going to generate something to cover the cost of those. So I think that was probably the biggest thing, is when I wanted to start kind of outsourcing things. And to Dad, it was, well, we can take care of that on our own. Well, I can do that. Well, you can do that. And I'm like, yeah, but there's other things that we can do to generate money it'll take care of that cost. You know, it'll maybe cost so that there's still 4 times the amount of money coming in, and we just got to pay it out once. And so we haven't had those. Now, there's been some ideas that I've had that have just been duds. I mean, I'm not going to lie. They've just been duds. And he has never said, no, we're not going to do it because the last time you tried something, it cost us this amount. Or yeah. So that's been really good that way is, there's not, I don't have a fear of failing on that part. I know that if it fails, yeah, it's going to hurt for a minute, but we're going to get through it. And he's not going to bring it back up 6 months or a year, 2 years down the road. And so that gives me more confidence that way.
Yeah. And that's the other thing, brother. I mean, you and I know this because we've been down this path, but sometimes you got to fail in order to really progress as a person. I only call them failures. And I say this all the time. They're only failures if you don't learn from them. That's it. If you learn from it, it's not a failure. It is absolutely not a mistake. It's an opportunity for us all to grow. And I'm sure he understands that. And I'm sure he had his paths through those years when he was growing of things he did. Wow. That's an interesting dynamic. If you could give somebody a word of advice who's transitioning like you have with, a parent, I know you said the why and the what, which I think was a fantastic nugget here. But is there anything else that you could recommend for somebody who is transitioning, not only maybe with a parent or even into a business ownership role where someone else has run it for so many years and they're stepping in to, I guess, take it on, so to speak?
Yeah, I think the most important thing that I have to remember with Dad is this, coming from the family part of it. Most important thing that I've had to remember with Dad is a lot of his identity is tied into this business. In this community, he's Larry Oser. He owns what used to be Oser Paint Center, which is now Oser Paint and Flooring. He owns that, and he does this, and they're great people to work with, and so a lot of his identity is tied up in that. And so, we've had arguments before where I've looked at it and been like, if you're not going to do the things that we want to do the way we want to do them around here, like, you don't need to come in. And like, that cuts. I know that hurts. That hurts a lot. Again, it goes back to the being needed, feeling like you need to be needed and wanted. And so I've really had to work on that. If we were still doing business his way, we'd still be writing with pen and paper, and there wouldn't be any emails, and computers would be obsolete. So progressing him with technology and not being frustrated with him. So, from the family point, if somebody's taking over their business that they're transitioning in that their parents have been running, is, just to be kind. And think about what you're going to say first before you say it, because I've been caught in that. And patient. Just to take the time, because be patient with them, because if it's something that they started, it means a lot to them, and for them to just turn it over, it's going to be rough. It's going to be hard. There's going to be some trials and tribulations, but just think about what you're going to say and how it's going to come across.
Yeah, listen, man, I'll tell you this. I mean, I don't even work with my dad, and I love my dad, but I got to be patient with him. I mean, and I don't even work with him. So, I mean, that adds an absolute different dynamic. So I think that's really great insight and great feedback of just being patient. And I think we all have to be patient with our parents, because I know when you're younger, like I looked up to my dad, he coached all my stuff, and then they slow down and they go through this transition, and he's really slowed down a lot. It's just one of those things where you got to be patient, because they're not, even my mom for that matter, they're just not who they were when you were growing up. But ultimately, I think that's a fantastic point that you bring up, and great advice. So tell me now, what's for the future? Talk to me about the future for you. Where's the path for the company, and what are you most excited about?
Yeah. So, we're extremely excited. We just hired our first ever full-time salesperson. Actually sent the offer.
Great.
got the offer signed back today. So we're extremely excited about that. We have something, I think one thing, just to kind of touch back a little bit, one word of advice I would give to anybody, especially if you've got a small family business and it's so small that you can kind of keep your fingers in everything, is I know it's really easy not to have processes and procedures in place because I can take care of it. I can do it. I can do that. And so you don't have any processes in place. You don't have any procedures in place. You have no SOPs or KPIs. Do that right now. Do it while you're small. Get those things out of the way. We did not. We never did, because when you're less than $1 million company, it's really easy for you to know everything that's going on and you to handle the scheduling and the installations and the measures and the orderings. And so, but when you become a 3 and a 4 and a $5 million company, you can't do that anymore. You've got to be able to put people into places to succeed. And if you don't have those things written down, it's extremely hard to try to pull it out of your head and just let somebody else do it. So that would be my big word of advice. We're in that transition right now. We're doing SOPs. We're doing KPIs. We've never done them before. And so we're really learning how to, instead of just saying, hey, get out of the way, just let me do that, because I know how to do it. It's taking the time to explain to people, to write it out so we can say, hey, here's a manual. This is how you do that. You get it done. So, when you ask where we're going, we'd love to continue to grow. We would love to continue to, add in some what we call satellite showrooms in the surrounding areas around us that are definitely not as big as our main showroom, but a smaller showroom that has some in-stock products that people could get. We'd love to reach out and do that and grow in other communities. We'd love to continue to, be able to bless the community that we're in. I know that you had DH on a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
We grew up together in elementary school all the way through high school. And, we would love to continue to partner with them in helping our community and do that. So, if we grow to a $10 million company, if we grow to a $20 million company, if God's plan for us is to grow to a $100 million company, we'd love it. But if his plan is for us to be a $5 million company that provides great service, that gives back to the community, then that's where we're supposed to be. And that's what we're going to continue to do.
Man, Todd, it's fantastic. And listen, we're going to clip that back though, for sure. We're going to make a clip out of that, but that was such great feedback on when you're transitioning from, a mom and pop location really to a bigger organization. Not saying you're not a mom and pop, but you're going from a small business to a medium-sized business. And that transition, you've got to have all the ducks in a row before you grow, because it's like anything. If you build with a weak foundation, it's going to crumble. So whether you did it now or whether you did it, you're doing it. That's the real key, is understand the KPIs, really with the foundation of the business. And I think that was a great point. So it sounds like the future's, and DH is funny dude, man. He is, I could see you guys get along. He was great to have it on the show, and you've been great as well. Listen, one last question for you. And this just goes with running business as a whole. What is one principle that you could share with our guests here that really, obviously you're a successful business, but if you could give one or two ingredients to run a successful organization, what would that be for you?
Yeah, I think probably the two that we really try to stand by here is, you have to be true to yourself. You have to be who you are. You're not going to be everybody's cup of tea. You can't go out and, fill in a niche for everybody. You have to really be the best you that you can be. Another thing that we go on here, one of our core values is to help first. Whether it's helping an employee, helping a coworker, helping the customer, helping, it's just a help first mentality. And that's what really, we really believe in that if you go out and you go out of your way to really help people in a genuine way, that it's going to come back tenfold. And we really believe that's probably one of our, one of the core values, but just be true to yourself and what you're doing, and the business will take care of itself. If you treat people the right way and do that, then everything will come back the way that it's supposed to.
It's fantastic, man. It's fantastic. If someone wants to reach out to you or even check out your website or get in contact with you, where can they find you, Todd?
Yeah. So our website is oserpaintandflooring.com, and the and is spelled out A-N-D. My email address is todd.oser@oserpaintandflooring.com. I'm on Facebook at just Todd Oser, or we've got a Facebook page for Oser Paint and Flooring. If there's anything I can do to help anybody out, I know it's, especially transitioning in a family business, it can be a little bit difficult, and I'd be more than happy to try to help out if anybody's coming into some problems or questions.
That's great, man. Listen, this has been a fantastic interview. You've given some great insight. I think it's going to help anybody who might be looking to do this in the future or is going through it in the right now. And I think your insight has been extremely valuable. So thanks for being on the Sales Proformance Show. I really, really appreciate it. And everybody, check us out at salesproformance.com. Do me a favor, share this show, like this show, just push it out to one person. If you can do that, just push it out to them, share it with them. And we appreciate all your support. This has been a fantastic show, and we will see you next time. Thanks for being here today. Todd, thanks again for being here. Appreciate you.
The Sales Proformance Show.